Everybody, welcome to LinkedIn Live. It is Friday. It is 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and I'm glad you're here with me today. We have a habit of coming to you live every Friday morning at 8:30 on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, whatever other platform we might want to show up on. We do that every Friday. So I'm really glad you're here today. I want to talk a little bit about this notion of sales process, what it means, what it doesn't mean. I'm going to riff a little bit today. I don't have any clever PowerPoints or keynotes like I have in the past weeks, so you're going to have to just listen to me. And I do want you to comment. I always tell people on these programs, I'm not going to be able to answer you right now, but I always go back after the show, if it's considered a show, and respond to your comments as well. But go ahead and put them in now because I want to hear it. And then Travis is monitoring that in case something crazy happens or you can't hear me or can't see me or microphones are bad or whatever. So make sure you do that. And then Travis will also, for those of you who are inclined to want to talk to me live about your team or yourself, we'll put in a calendar invite down there in the later on. So this whole idea of sales process came about. I was struggling in the profession back in my early years of being in sales. And you've probably heard my story. I really didn't get into sales because I wanted to be into it. I got into it because there was nothing else. And maybe some of you had that situation too. Or maybe you had a area of study like accounting or engineering and you wanted to go into that. And then all of a sudden you realize when you're 30 years old, oh my gosh, I've got to sell. I've got to be out there talking to customers and prospects and shooting videos and doing content, things like that. Wasn't available when I was coming up. But the point there is that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I struggled a lot. And I struggled externally in the world. I couldn't make sales. I was not very good at closing. I didn't know how to get the decision other than, the price goes up on Monday, so you better buy today, which was awful. But that was how our sales leader taught us to get orders. I'm embarrassed about that now. I'm sure he is too. But he's probably not listening to this. And so I wasn't very good at it. And I realized that I had no system. I had no system. I had no system for success. I had no system for selling. I had no system for marketing. We've talked about that. I think a couple Fridays ago, I talked about systems thinking. I didn't have a system or a process for anything. And that really hurt me because I didn't have an asset that I could pull out and say, this is the way I work. This is how we do business. I just got off a call today with a client who is with a large safety and protective gear company. And he's really good at what he does. I mean, he's really good. He's calling on national accounts, large accounts. He is probably watching this because I make my clients watch this, whether they want to or not. But he struggles sometimes with going into these large accounts who have systems. They have a system for buying, and his system for selling ain't worth much to a big client that has a system for buying. And if you're calling on large clients or large potential customers, they have systems for buying. And usually a lot of it gets down to price or to terms or to contract or legal or things like that. And I told him, I said, I want you to walk in with the mentality, and I want you to do the same thing here. I want you to walk in with the mentality of, here's how I work. Here's how I work. Not, here's the process. Not, I'm going to help you make a lot of money and here's how I'm going to do it. Not that. It starts with, you have to have the attitude that you work in a certain way in the sales cycle, and that certain way has a process that you attach yourself to that is flexible so that you can, what's this, bob and weave, you can head fake, you can do that, but generally it's this process. And he was in a business where he didn't really even know until after a call or two in whether they were a prospect for him or not, because a lot of it depends on the kind of things they're doing now, the kind of vendor that they use, and the kind of work product and things like that. I'm not going to get into it. But I said, well, then what you need to do is you need to have a two-stage process. Stage one in your process is where we determine together whether there's anything here. If we determine there's nothing here, we don't have to spend 6 months finagling and wrangling and arm wrestling about terms and price. We don't have to do all that. Think of how much time that frees up, Mr. Prospect, if you and I don't have to go through that routine. So step one is them figuring that out. It may be a couple of calls. It may be a call and a phone call, maybe 3 phone calls and a call. I don't care what it is. But that's got to be stage one of his process. I think actually all of us could use that whole idea of we're going to spend a little time up front. I'm going to invest a little time to determine if I want to spend a lot of time on the back end in the sales process. It's good for your customer too, because they don't want to be hassled by you when there's nothing there and you keep calling them and saying, okay, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? How you doing? Just want to follow up. You know, all that BS that we have learned how to do. So stage one here, or step one, is that you have to divide your system into stages. And it could be as simple as 2 stages. Stage one is the understanding if there's anything here. Stage two is the more methodical process where we go through and understand the economics, understand who all is involved, who do we need to be talking to, what kind of demonstration, what kind of capabilities, what do you want to know from me, all those things. So that's an example of the 2-stage process. Here's how we work. Stage one, we get together and talk, and we decide together whether there's anything there. Stage two is we go through the process. So I like that. I like that a lot. But regardless if you're into that, qualification step or not, you need to have a systematic way to work people through your procedure. Now, it could be that stage one is some version of a discovery where you're discovering from them if they have a kind of problem that you can fix. You're discovering from them whether you're talking to the right people or whether they will allow you in to see the right people. Because if they say to you, oh, no, Bill, you can't talk to our CEO, then I'm probably going to say, well, there's nothing here. There's no fit. Why would I go down the path if I'm not going to get a chance to talk to the president of a $50 million company and I can put $1 million a year into his pocket, then he doesn't want to talk to me? Wouldn't he kind of like to know where it's coming from? So you have to decide what is your process there and what do you need to know for you to be comfortable saying, okay, I'm going to keep going. Step two is what's the problem? What are the compelling issues? What are the reasons they have to change behavior, to change a vendor, to start buying from you or anybody? Number 3, you have to understand what are the economics of that decision. Does it cost them any money to have the problem? Does it cost them any money to fix the problem? How long have they been dealing with the problem? How much longer are they going to be dealing with the problem? If it costs $1 million a year to have the problem, and they've been dealing with it for 5 years, and in the not too distant future, they'll deal with another 3 years, that's $8 or $9 million worth of whatever, profit, margin, revenue, dollars. It's a lot of money. But if you're just looking at what's the price of your product and there's nothing to compare it to, it's always going to be too high. Always going to be too high. So part of a great process is where you're really understanding the entire lay of the land, and you're not just going in trying to get them to buy. Don't do that. It's just awful. It makes you look silly. It's why closing percentages are 15 to 20%. I know they're not in your business. I know they're higher in my business, Bill. Okay, well maybe they are. Maybe they are. But in most businesses, I think actually it's closer to 10%. 10 to 15 to 20%. So the bottom line is you're spending 90% of your time dealing with somebody who's not going to buy. And you want to create wealth in your life, and you're going to spend 90% of your time calling on people who are never going to buy. It's going to take you a long time to create wealth. And I don't want it to take long. I want you to have a protocol and a procedure and a process that'll help you get there. Step 4 in the process is I want to know who I should be talking to. Who are the decision influencers? I don't like this whole he's the goat and she's the seal and he's the lion. It's like, oh, God. Can't I just go in and have a conversation with my buyer and say, look, what does it look like when you guys make a decision around here? And if he says, look, I take it, I am the repository for all the information, Bill, I'll then take it to our senior executive committee who will make the decision for us, then I will say, I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to go there. I need to be in front of the executive committee. If you can't put me there, that's great. I move on. So how many teeth are in your system? Because as you start to describe your system, you've got to be crystal clear what you will and won't tolerate. Now, the way I said that, you may say, geez, Bill, it's kind of forceful, kind of arrogant. Okay, I wouldn't say it that way. I'd be a little bit more gentle with it. Step 5 is some kind of recommendation where you've taken all this information, the economics and the who makes the decision and what's the problem and where are they trying to get and all that, and you put it into a recommendation. Then that's step 5, and that's typically we've called it the presentation. I like recommendation better because I just feel like it has more of a, I don't know, an essence to it that's focused on you as a provider of something value. You're a value provider who comes in and recommends. I like that better than presentation. That turns you into a salesperson. I don't want that. The last step in all this is you got to have guardrails. You've got to have things you will do and things you won't do. In my example, my client typically is in a 12-month selling cycle. And I said, well, are you okay with that? He says, no, I think it needs to be 6 to 8 months, 6 to 9 months. I said, okay. Then you've got to create a process that has a timeline on it that says, here's the first step. We're going to find out if we're a good fit together. And then once we do that, this process takes 5 months. So the whole process takes 6 to 7 months. You don't have to do it by days, but you've got to let the prospect know that, look, if we're going to go down this path, this is about how long it's going to take. Have a timeline. I even actually drew this for him, but you can't see it. But it has a timeline underneath each stage. So when it comes to sales process, you've got to be thinking, what is my attitude when I'm creating it? My attitude is, here's how I work. It doesn't have to be from a place of arrogance. It has to be from a place of abundance and a place of detachment. You've heard me talk about these terms. That's when these terms start to come into play. Abundance means if they don't buy, somebody else will. And if you're shooting video like this and you're creating content and you've got a prospecting system like we talked about here a week or so ago, then what are you worried about whether one person does business with you or not? It's of no concern to you. You've got too many there's an abundance of opportunity in the marketplace. If you only have one person in your funnel, don't blame them for that. That's you. That's your problem. Is you haven't done it, you don't have a prospecting system that's putting people into the funnel at all times. I'm going to be doing something, I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be called Everyday Leads. And Everyday Leads is a system that we're going to build for some of our clients that helps you put people in the pipeline every day. Every day there's people who are booking calls, there's people who are responding to your output or outreach. But it's called Everyday Leads, and we're building it right now. It's not ready yet. It won't be probably for a couple months, but it'll be a valuable tool. And then, again, the guardrails. So hopefully that has helped. I'd love to hear your comments on this. And I think the sales process is an asset. And when you get it documented, do not show it like this. Do not take it out of your coat pocket and it's all tattered and folded up and say, well, here's our process. Your sales process should be a thing of beauty. It should have beauty attached to it. It should have the essence of this is a thing. This is a real thing here. Have somebody design it. Once you outline it and document it, have somebody design it. You might have 2 or 3 of them too, but that's okay. It's just paper. But if you can show it to them and they say, wow, this person is serious about the process, absolutely you are. All right, we've got a panel discussion coming up here on April 16th. It's a week from Wednesday of this week, it's coming week. Well, you know when April 16th is. I don't need to tell you when it is. And it's for 12 CEOs, VPs of sales, or presidents. And you've got to have 10 to 12 direct reports at least to come in. And if you'd like to focus on that, it's a 1-hour workshop. We're going to be talking about how do you inspire behavior change. Every sales organization needs to change their behavior. You may not think that, but they do. And we're going to talk about what are the areas they need to change their behavior in and how do you prompt behavior change, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. So April 16th for you CEOs, it's not a sales program. If you're a salesperson, don't come. I'm not going to let you in if you're a salesperson. But if you're a CEO or have CEO experience and want to bring some of your CEO buddies or a VP of sales inside your company, it's open to that. Hopefully that has helped. I will see you later.